So hi everyone, welcome to this seventh session of our focus program. So we have today a talk with artist Nicolas Floc'h. We're also happy to welcome Pascal Neveu. I'm not sure if the sound is good. Can you hear me well? Yes, is it fine? So I do carry on. So Focus is a program by the Institut français inviting curators and institutions directors twice a year to come to France to discover the French art scene. And this year, due to COVID, we decided to do it online. So we have this week a series of talks. So I'm very glad. So my name is Adeline Blanchard. I'm responsible for visual arts at Institut français. And I'm very glad to welcome this talk. First, a short introduction about Nicolas Floc'h. So, Nicolas, you were born in Rennes, in France, in 1970. You live and work in Paris, and you're also a professor at Rennes School of Art. You are represented by Galerie Maubert, but also by Galerie LMNO in Brussels. You are involved in many artistic fields like installations, photographs, sculptures and performances, and they question an era of transition where flux, disappearance and regeneration play an essential role. Can you hear me well, or I can see in the background a strange sound, but I think it should be okay.
Maybe it's me.
The sound is bad, is it? Can you hear me, Nicolas?
I think he just left.
For me, it's getting a little bit.
It's okay, he's back.
Here you are. We can't see you, but we can hear you from far away. Yeah, I can see you again. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Was the sound okay when I was speaking?
It was fine on my side.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, me too.
Was it okay? Yeah. So as a committed artist, so you never stop working from societal, environmental, and economic observations where you imagine possible evolutions. From your long-term projects fed by travels, meetings, and scientific research are born open works rooted in the real, where collaborative and evolutive processes are takes the first place. So recently, so you are now exhibiting at FRAC PACA in Marseille. You recently had a solo show at Galerie Maubert last year. You were shown also at Centre d'Art Passerelle in Brest, at Macval around Paris, another show in Nizza at the MAMAC, the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art, but also Santiago de Chile. So that's, yeah, more or less the last exhibitions. And now I will pass on the word to Pascal Neveu, who is the director of FRAC PACA, who used to be, because he has just changed his position, and he's the new director of FRAC Picardie. And Pascal, I would be happy to hear what a FRAC is, and if you could introduce a little bit the FRAC PACA. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. Thanks a lot, Adeline, for this invitation. In some words, the FRAC are very specific French institutions. It was created at the beginning of the 80s, and the main idea was to develop a collection of contemporary art in each region of France. So we have now a cartography of 23 FRAC in France, who are specialized or not in several contemporary arts. And the FRAC PACA in Marseille It's a very big building. It's a new building. It was inaugurated in March 2013. It was in the context of the European Cultural Capital. And this is a building from the Japanese architect Kengo Kuma in the city center of Marseille, not so far from the museum and in the old area of the port of Marseille. And it's a building of 6,000 square meters with several levels. And we have a very general collection with two important focus on videos and photographies. And this is a building with terraces with several points of view on the city. And we have in this building the opportunity to develop several projects at the same time. With four levels, and Nicolas exhibition is on 2 levels. The partnership with Nicolas a long time ago, because the first time we met with Nicolas, it was in 2012, and the first time was to buy some works for the collection, photographies and sculptures, and we imagined this project of a solo show during all this time with several moments of residencies in the building. We have also 2 studios to invite artists, curators, art critics to come in Marseille for time of residencies to spend some days. There is no application, it's just the opportunity to welcome some people to be in Marseille and to prepare new projects. The FRAC is Marseille is in a context, a regional context, very, very rich with a lot of art centers, art schools, foundations, private foundations. This is a place in Marseille you develop a very specific project on ecology, environmental point of view, but also around the collection of artist books and editions. So two collections in the same building with a lot of partnerships in France and in all over the world also.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Pascal. So that is actually the last exhibition that you curated in this PACA. And so you're now at FRAC Picardie in the north of France. And thank you very much. So I will welcome Nicolas. So can you hear me well, Nicolas?
Yes, fine. Hello everybody. Thank you, Adeline, for inviting me for this meeting. So I will try to, unfortunately, we can't be together to see the show in Marseille, but I try through a few pictures to give you an approach of this show. As Pascal told you, it's linked to many years of collaboration. I'm working, you will see my work, it's very linked to ocean. A lot in the last 10 years. And Pascal and the FRAC PACA help on the first project, and were not far all the time I was working on this project. So I will show you at the end some of the work that we did 10 years ago with the FRAC, but I will start with this show if we can. Yeah, this is it's the main picture that we use for communication in the FRAC, which in a way synthesize the different projects, because we will see, we can say on this picture, the one before, it synthesize the project in the way you see a black and white image, and you will see many black and white image. You see the surface of the ocean, and you see a kind of monochromatic image under. which is linked to the color of water. And so the work that I was developing in the, we can go to the next picture, in the last 10 years, was linked to the representation of habitat, which I start with artificial habitat with artificial reefs underwater, and I'm slowly worked on natural habitat. So I arrived to the representation of landscape or underwater seascape. So we can go, I will just first present a little the space and go describe better the work after. We can go through the image, please. Yes, so this is a work in relation with the color of water that I'm developing. So we can continue with the picture. And with the color of water, there is several pits in the FRAC. When you enter the building, you have, I put a series of pictures in the windows of all the buildings. There is 40 big pictures, which give you an impression when you enter the building. All the light it's colored by the color of water. Blue and green color of water, depending where you are in the national park. I will National Park of Calanque, where I worked to take this picture. We can continue with the next picture, please. And after, so when you go down and you see in the next picture, we can see at the in the space that when you enter the space, one line, please, yeah. On the side, there is one big line with picture, and in front of you, there is a grid which is made from picture of the color of water. Like we saw before, it's pictures that I made. I dive, or I go into the water column and I take picture. It's a wide angle picture. And I show when you enter in the water, you are with color in 360 degrees around you. You have color all around, and it depends where you are. You can have more blue or green water, but this color, it's defined by the composition of the water. It means that it's mainly the phytoplankton, which is the basis of life in ocean, of life and food chain in the ocean, which will determine the color of water. But it's studied by many scientists because it's linked to the carbon cycle, because as you know, ocean is absorbing 30% of anthropic carbon, and it's producing 50% of our oxygen. So it's really a big field of study, and I'm working with scientists in different marine stations and different laboratories, working in relation with the color of water and representing it in photography, but scientists also use my photography for analysis. So if we can continue, that's one of the projects. You will see in the show there is mainly 3 big projects presented. One is linked to the color of water with this grid that I took in the National Park of Calanque, which is in Marseille area. But with this color of water, I work in many places in the world. The second project is called Invisible, and it's linked to a series of pictures that are made in the National Park of Calanque, where I follow the coastline from La Ciotat to Marseille, and with the island, which is 162 kilometers altogether. And I did a kind of inventory of the underwater seascape in the national park. We can continue with the picture. And so what you basically want, here you see in this map, all the dives that I did was 70 dives following all the coastline, and all the dots going towards towards the open sea. It's the point where I did the color of water. This line you see around the number 30, you have the number 30 and 71, the line 71. You have all this point where I go with the camera down until 30 meters in the column of water from the shore toward open sea. And why I choose this point, because there is something very specific in the Calanque Park. There is all the water from the city of Marseille, it's a urban park, which are through in the water in the middle of the national park. And since 100 years, water are thrown away in this area. And what is the result? The result is that this, obviously, there is many substances in the water which will made bloom, what we call bloom. It's a lot of phytoplankton will develop with that nitrate or many things that there is in the water. And so it changes the color of water. And so with that, you see how this water that we threw away will transform all, going from green to blue, all the area, how it transforms the water itself. And this is readable also in the seascape underwater, because seascape will change with this pressure. And it's something that you can show on the series of pictures that I show. If you can go on the next picture, please. Yeah, here you see this line, how it's installed in the FRAC. And so it follows this line, of course. We can continue with the next picture, where we see what maybe you can wonder why I'm working on that representation of underwater seascape. It's because I noticed, I dive since a very long time, and I noticed that first this underwater seascape are transforming, they are changing very quickly for different reasons, for global warming, for acidification, for local pressure, like we see in the Calanque Park. But also, I noticed that it was not really a true representation of this underwater seascape. You can have many, I think of you, have a vision of tropical underwater seascape, because coral will be a subject. Otherwise, very often, it's fish or mammal will be a subject of some picture. Or you will have also exploration picture, which is really anthropocentric, where human is always in the center of the picture. But the seascape itself, it's not the subject of photography, of underwater photography. And so you arrive to something where people have a better representation of tropical. Seascape has their own seashore. So underwater, and for me, it was important to show underwater seascape from France. So the other project that there is upstairs, it's from Brittany, from another part of France, where you see other kind of seascape. And for me, it was important to show the difference of the landscape, and also to work of this inventory of this different landscape in the coast of France, showing the diversity, but also showing to do a kind of inventory of different typology of seascape. We can continue to where we will see, if you can go through the picture next, to go through different view. where you see, for example, these two pictures, you can also ask why I use black and white. I use black and white because it's at first I check all its wide angle, very wide angle, every picture. It's natural light, and it's I use black and white because paradoxically it brings us closer to this environment. Because if you see this picture with underwater seagrass, for example, you can be in a field somewhere on land, or you don't know where you are. And it brings you closer to this environment. And for me, it's an important thing. After, we can continue through the picture. And after, there is obviously, you don't have the same history of photography underwater, and the same evolution of photography, and same history of landscape photography underwater.
Nicolas,
yeah?
Nicolas, I just wanted to ask, because
you don't hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well, but you said, so why you are taking pictures in black and white, and I'm not sure if I got it, because you're fascinated by the color of water. That was, I mean, one series that you're starting with different colors. And then you said, yeah, why are you taking pictures in black and white though?
Because, yeah, on one side, and what it means, which is a kind of landscape which refer in a way to painting also, to the history of painting, of immersive installation. You are in all this link to I will say to art history. With the image, the example, the image that there is now in the screen, which is a black and white image where you see a seascape. We are more linked to the representation of landscape, coming from David Caspar Friedrich to the who make mission about the landscape, as public commission like the Datar in France exploring the seashore, but it wasn't out in the water. As all these different representation in photography that has made the history of land photography we have. But underwater, you didn't have this evolution. And for me, it was important also because this was not a subject and hasn't been represented through underwater photography, really represented. It was also a way to start from point maybe in a way more abstract, but also to, when you see this picture like the one we have now, that we see now, you don't know where you are. If you are on land, if you are on another planet, if you are, and this is very important for me, because a color picture in the water will bring you out of this space. You don't feel like being part of it, but it's our world. And to show it in black and white makes you closer to this. And we can go through the next image, please. And so that's the reason, like here, for example, you can be on space. It can be an asteroid or another planet. But it's underwater and it's going 30 meters. It's like a cliff, but underwater. It's going 30 meters down, and you have this as I say, it's all wide angle. And we can continue through picture, please. If you can, yeah, go through the next one also. So yes, we come back to the color of water. Sorry, just to explain you how it works. You can go to the next one with the boat. So as I show you with the point with the map, every 5 meters I take a picture down in the column of water. So if you come back 2 pictures away to the grid, we see that you go from this green, as I explained, to this is over 5 kilometers. It's 30 meters deep, 5 kilometers from shore to open sea. And normally in the Mediterranean Sea, you have only this blue, because it's in the north of France, in Netherlands, in the north of France or in Belgium, you will have green water, like on the right part of the picture. Because there is many sediment, it's very rich water, and it's normal there. In Calanque, and if you go from Netherlands to the middle of the Atlantic, or you will go to a blue like that. But here it's made by anthropic pressure, so it's very different. This color of water, it's not, I would say, in a way, a natural process. It's a provocative process. So this was important also. Even if I work with the color of water in very different contexts, but this Marseille context brings me to work on this anthropic pressure. We can continue, please. So because the work on color of water began in 2016, sorry, where we can go through the picture, please. And yeah, where I first started to take pictures in different seas, but isolated in Europe, in Japan, in many places. And we start after this new protocol. It's a new project continuing until 2022 on kind of cut in the water column, where we do grilled with the color like that. We can continue, please, this picture. I'm going through the color of water. This is the color, yeah. Okay. And this, now we go, as you have seen, it was color of water in the entrance of the building. And after we arrived to the second room, big room of the FRAC, where there is a picture of a different environment, because it's a seashore of Brittany in France, west of Brittany, between Saint-Malo and Saint-Nazaire. And if we can continue, and I show turning in the room, and we are in a very different environment because water are richer, you have less anthropic pressure, and we enter in a kind of like a tropical, and it's not tropical, but like it looks more like jungle. Because it's a lot of vegetation, it's very different. And the work that I'm doing in Brittany, I didn't follow all the shore like I did in the south, but I took 45 points around Brittany. I'm working also with scientists from IFREMER, it's a national research center from the Museum of Natural History of Paris, and Concarneau, with who I'm working on that project. And you see that, for example, in this picture, that it looks like much more jungle. It's big kelp. It's called kelp and seaweed, like we found in every cold country, like in Northern Europe, in USA, in the north, in the south also, in South Africa, in Chile, you have big seaweeds like that, and so it's a very, very different impression. If you can continue, so I show sometimes more. It's never really detailed. Here you feel that it could be like a detail, but it's not. It's like a feel. It's like if you were in fog in the seascape, in a landscape with fog, because obviously the density of the water is limiting the vision, and you have this fading of the landscape through the water column. So we can continue. And a thing that, because I've been really descriptive, but I told you one thing in relation to the why I started to do this this picture of transformation of the picture of the landscape. Sorry, because I have observed since a very long time this transformation, but also I went in 2017 with a boat called Tara, which is a research vessel from France, bringing sometimes artists, but scientists. It's a 36-meter schooner, and it's going around the world to study or plankton or ice, or this one was about coral, and mainly we study global warming and acidification of the ocean. I was between Tokyo and Taipei with them, and so we could observe, for example, seascapes like this one with kelp, because around the latitude of Tokyo, you have this kind of seascape with big kelp. And we saw some area where scientists had studied that 25 years ago it was kelp, and now it's only coral, because there is a shift of ecosystem. With global warming, the ecosystem are shifting. And at the same time, in some specific place, we study acidification, which was linked to volcanic activity in the study zone, but it's a kind of preconfiguration of global ocean at different age, we will say. Like you can have a preconfiguration of evolution of ocean in 2100. And so we were working in this kind of places. I worked also in Mediterranean with the same scientist team in Vulcano for a public commission from CNAP, from Centre National of Visual Art of France. I did a project also there about acidification, but it's a little long to explain that. But just to say that this underwater seascape transformed very quickly. A recent study published in the newspaper Le Monde says that the movement of ecosystem, it's six times quicker on underwater than on land. Sorry?
Nothing. Just the microphone that is not turned off. Yeah, it's
okay.
fine.
Okay. So we can continue with the picture. It's also the reason why, for me, it was really important to work on this representation, because to document this underwater seascape, it's to show a state and how they appear today. For example, this underwater seascape in 30 years could be totally different in this space. So I think it's very, very, very important to have there is scientific study, obviously, there is information about this seascape, but there is no representation, which is different because scientists are studying it. But when they do picture generally, it's picture over 1 meter square, because they can measure what there is in this meter square. And they don't work on general view, on perspective view. And it's the work that I'm doing in relation with this case, and what it's mainly presented in FRAC. And we can continue about the Calanque. It was a book. All this series, it's called Paysage Productive Seascape. And in relation, also, obviously, I'm talking about the production of this ecosystem, how they are productive. And there is a book, the first book about, because Productive Seascape is the name of the different series. Initium Maris in Brittany, it's one series, and it's part of Productive Seascape. Invisible in the Source, it's part of Productive Seascape. The Color of Water, it's part of Productive Seascape. But it's different series within this big series. But the first published book, it's with Roma Publication in Amsterdam, and it's about Invisible, the Source project, and just published recently. If we can continue with the picture, please. And also an important thing to say is that here some view of the exhibition also, is that the project in the Source in the Calanque was at the end, it began with a residency. I was invited with a residency where I proposed a project, and the Ministry of Culture, many people from the area were interested, and we transformed it in a public commission from the Ministry of Culture, and it's the first public commission underwater. So it's the first project to have been supported by the National Ministry of Culture for an underwater project. So it's an important thing also. If we can continue with the picture, and we can go through, yeah, I will talk about the sculpture. I will finish with that. You have a PDF with more work. Obviously, I'm not doing only photography, but and these projects are also not only photography, because it's different expedition. It's several proposals where the proposal itself makes the work. Obviously, there is many photography, but it's more global proposition than isolated picture. And so this sculpture that you have in this picture is an artificial reef, and in 2010 I started the underwater project focusing on artificial reef, where I started to do a documentary project in photography and sculpture. And in sculpture, we can continue in the picture, I was remaking existing artificial reef. We can continue going to the artificial reef after. There is more picture after. And yeah, here, for example, was in FRAC Bretagne in 2017, where I show 40 different kind of artificial reef, doing them 10 times smaller. You can wonder why to do it. What's an artificial reef first? An artificial reef is a structure which is made to for sea life to develop in this structure. It's or to restore area with pressure, damages area, or it's linked to fishery for fish production, and fishermen are fishing around this structure. And they are existing in all over the world, but there is many of this structure in Japan. And I was interested in the shape of the structure, and I made this work in this documentary work in sculpture because they are built, they are assembled in a harbor, immersed, and nobody has access up to this structure, which is transformed because it's colonized by the environment. So to have a memory, you can have a picture, or if you can have a real memory of the shape, to make a documentary project in sculpture makes sense. So this was the first part of the project. The second part of the project, if we can go through the picture. So we will see several structures. This was in the Museum des Beaux-Arts of Calais. We can continue, where you will see different kind of structures. So I made more than 40 of this in concrete, and they are all made in concrete, like the real reef in the same material. So these are all shapes designed by engineers. And after, we can continue going through the picture until the underwater picture. Yeah, here, for example, you are inside a reef in Japan, because they are very huge structure. Each time the bigger one are 35 meters high, So it's really architecture underwater. And I'm going to site where there is reef, and I dive to photograph them. If you can continue to go through the picture. Yeah, so this is in Barcelona, in Portugal, south of Portugal, and the other one, you can continue. I photographed many in Japan. This is south of France and Japan. And so I will stop, I think, here. I tried to stay close to the show of Marseille. There is a show now also in Moscow in the MAM of artificial reef and productive seascape also. Yeah, there is many more things to discover, but I invite you to go to see the PDF for the other thing. And now if you have some questions, it's all obviously a little frustrating to not be able to show you. Also, one important thing, all the prints you see in Marseille are carbon prints. So it's very specific white and black and white prints. It's just because you don't see them, you see only pictures, it's very different. But it's important to know that it's not just common prints, it's very, very carefully made prints.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Nicolas.
Thank you.
So I have maybe one question first. So you're doing real performances underwater. You're a real performer. You work together with scientists. You collect so many pictures. You create a real archive of all these reefs underwater. And how do the scientists community react to your artistic work? I mean, are they happy with that, or
it's very it's very different in relation to the places. It's, for example, with if I take the example of the color of water, we started with to work together. I made some picture underwater. We made some piece exchanging with scientists, and now we started to set up a specific protocol together. This great thing, but I didn't decide it, but we work also with satellite of NASA. We work with all the different teams which make measure in the column of water. So they are really interested of what I'm bringing with this picture, which is another element which completes their research. So that's an aspect for the color of water. For example, acidity and global warming, with the team that I was with Tara, and I'm working with also in Mediterranean Sea and in different places. They are really interested in the pictures that I'm doing with comparing seascape. You have acid zone, non-acid zone, and this representation and also what I say about the underwater seascape. They are interested by this representation, and I'm participating to some of their publications, and we are exchanging and continuing to work together. In Brittany, I set up the team for the project, for the exhibition, inviting the Hubert Loisel from the Color of Water with whom I was working, inviting Sylvain Agostini from acidification in Japan with whom I was working on this project, and starting with two other teams from the museum and from there who were interested in the project. So I set up the team. In Marseille, it's different because I made this. I started work with this scientist a long time ago, but we didn't show. We worked together at some point, and now it's more all the work that I did all along the coastline they will be able to use that work to have it as a database and to work from that to also to compare it with projects and to include it in projects. So I will say that the response is specific to each places, but there is something which is, I would say, common. It's obviously because I'm working since a long time in relation with ocean, I have a good knowledge of this environment. I can obviously talk with the scientists, understanding what they are saying, and I bring some representations that they will not bring. And it's a dialogue. It's not, I'm not entering in existing scientific projects, but I'm in my own research, which will cross scientific research. And we are in a relation of dialogue, and that's the most important thing. And it's going in I will say, in both sides. It's scientists, for example, in Brittany, they are interested also to use all my process after to set up participative scientific process. So they will take what I'm doing as an example to set up a scientific protocol. So there is many different ways of interacting with scientists, but also an important part in the south of or in Britain, I give
the sound is not optimal.
Because I have a big database of pictures. And this database, but for me, it's important to be, you hear me now? No? It's, wait.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Better? Better?
It's better, yeah. Yeah. At some point it was a bit.
Okay. I was saying that
and I think it's
database of
yeah. No, we can hear you
at
now.
some point,
no, sorry.
I obviously to make my picture. Yeah. You can.
So the sound was
Is it better?
low. Yeah, it's better now.
Hello.
So,
is it better?
Yeah, it's better.
Very low. It's better.
Yeah. So I think we will.
Okay.
Yeah, if there are no more questions, we will end up the conversation soon as time is running. Maybe I wanted to know, maybe Pascal, if you had some good reviews on the exhibition so far, and because you had, I mean, you were opening, the show was opened before, it was still, before we entered, Marseille entered into a red zone. So I think, so were there many people coming to the opening?
Yes, the opening was very strange with the COVID, but during the journey, it was very, a lot of good feelings, and people were very surprised by the opportunity, the capacity of Nicolas to invest the space with the level, with the color of the waters and the windows of the building, and also it's the first time we have a look on the seascape, and it's really a way to discover our environment with not only a scientific to see to discover the way of an artist to speak about the nature and the seascape on the water.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Nicolas, so you were mentioning briefly some upcoming projects. Could you tell us again what is coming next year and what your plans are?
I'm continuing the project with but underwater seascape in Brittany, which goes until 2000. 2022, but going deeper because I will go with one big research vessel from Ifremer next summer to work. I will not dive this time, but I will work with the robot, with the ROV until very deep, 2,500 meter deep. This time not in natural light, obviously, with artificial light. So I'm continuing that. We are preparing many with Zimro Marine Station and with the North, many things with the color of water. I was supposed to go to USA to work with about the color of water this year, but I think it will be complicated. So we are working in Europe at the moment about the thing of color of water, working in very different environment because you don't only have green and blue. So this is continuing, and obviously it will be a publication about this project in around 2022, and we are preparing shows for this time, more or less. And after there is also project we are continuing, but at of Japan, I'm continuing on several projects and starting to work also on some project on land because what I didn't have time to talk about that, but it's also what I'm working on. It's about interconnection between land, ocean, atmosphere, and ice. And so I'm exploring this different environment, and there is some projects which are now more linked to atmosphere or more linked to land. And to ice, I was supposed to go with the Celtic Explorer to Arctic in September, but it has been cancelled because of COVID. But I'm continuing exploring this different environment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Nicolas. Thank you, Pascal. So I hope some of us will be able to see the show that is still on. In Marseille. So we hope so. But I wish you good luck. And so tomorrow we will carry on with another talk starting at 9:30 with Zineb Zedira and the three curators of the French pavilion for the Venice Biennale. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So
Thank you.
the portfolios and
Bye-bye.